Hi folks, this is Jason Sage with Jegas LLC, and this is our third video in a series on Jegas Edit. I wanted to talk about some of the new tools that we've added in the Jegas Edit to help developing. And one of the key ones is if you are working in an HTML file, I think I have it on my desktop here. Note I gotta hit this filter. I'm gonna hit all files, grab a HTML file. We often see these hexadecimal codes that represent colors, and as useful as they are for describing a web page how to be rendered, it doesn't really mean anything to me. I have no idea what color BA148C stands for. So we added a little tool in Jegas Edit so you can highlight these numbers, right click, hit convert, go to color hex, and it'll show me the color that's selected, and it's a lovely pink, it appears. So we're going to grab blue. I'm going to say OK, and you'll see it changed the code for me because it was selected. And if I highlight that again, it does keep the color. I just noticed trying to record this video previously that the RGB feature, which does something very similar, doesn't seem to be working quite as well. And that's when you right click, you go to RGB, you get the same color dialog, you pick a color, you say OK, and it should write the colors that you have selected. And as you see, I got all zeros. If we try that again, I'm going to have to work on this for the next version, I guess, because let me grab a color like blue. Let me make sure that this isn't black, because that might have been all that was. But I hit blue, I say OK, and that actually looks correct. But what I noticed when I was making the other video, and you might notice now, is when I right clicked on this and went to go back to convert it again, I lost. See, now I'm in red, like it got scrambled or something. So I have to say that the RGB tool works for generating these numbers, but I don't think it works quite as smoothly as the hexadecimal, where I can just highlight it and it'll actually show me the correct color when I go into that. So we'll get to that. See, it's blue, and if I do it again, it's blue. Okay, but I'm noticing with the RGB that it's not. So, but that is a cool tool nonetheless, where you can, with when you're doing web development, it's great to be able to just go to a color dialog and get these codes, or take these codes and convert them to a color, like right in front of your eyes. The RGB one is actually for folks who are doing like graphic shaders and dark basic, and evidently, as I mentioned, it looks like it's generating the numbers fine, but it doesn't let me highlight them to see what they are. So we're gonna have to work on that. But moving forward, let's see, we had on the right click, we also have built in, we have a hexadecimal converter. If I was to put in a hexadecimal number, which might look odd to non-developers or folks not familiar with hexadecimal numbering system, these four F's, if I go to convert and I say hex to integer, it converts it to an integer number. Likewise, if I highlight that integer number and I convert it to hex, integer to hex, it'll return it back to the hexadecimal value. It's just a little widget, but it's a useful one when you're doing development. Save you some time. That actually, the hexadecimal conversion goes out. It's big enough, large enough to handle 64-bit numbers. So if you got some crazy number, like let's see, if that's 16 bits and that's 32, if we did a number like this, that's 64-bit. We could highlight that. Let's get rid of the spaces because it does not take spaces into account very nicely. If I was to take this number, right-click, say convert, hex to integer, there we go, it did it. So, and that works pretty nice. Now, if you weren't aware, there's a calculator built into Jegas Edit, and it works just as hopefully as you'd expect, with the addition that everything that you do in decimal over here gets translated, if possible, to hexadecimal over here. And it's okay if you get these kind of exceptions. It's all set so that you don't crash. It's probably because I was playing with it. But the bottom line is that whatever you have in here for numbers, it's going to be dynamic. It's going to be just changed to hex. It's good for a quick copy. You know, that's really what I made it for. So, and of course, it does all your normal stuff too, like 8 times 8 equals whatever, 64, 40, and then it gives me the hexadecimal conversion. Okay, there is error trapping in place with those dialogues because some of these advanced math buttons here are really quick to cause errors as far as the computer's concerned. So we made sure we have traps and all that so that it doesn't stop and crash the Jegas editor if you did something mathematically that the computer was like, I don't want to do that. So we have that covered, so nothing was lost, nothing crashed. The calculator comes in handy that way. So I'm trying to think what else we need to cover here. We've got the options. You know what's new is when we're editing, we're in the options pane here. This is my cleanup video, so I'm supposed to try to cover the stuff that I haven't covered yet. When we were editing the languages, let's go to syntax. Let's grab, I don't know, HTML. when we go into syntax properties, there's this option here called default filter. And this has a syntax some of you may or may not be familiar with, but this is why when you go to open files, like if I'm in an HTML file, it's going to limit it to the first filter I have set up. Now if you don't like these filters at all, you can just delete them and just keep all files. In other words, you can do this. And you'll always, no matter what, not be limited. So the way that it works is if you are editing an HTML file, then it's going to, when you go to open a new file, it's going to use the default filter for HTML. So the way this was just a second ago, let me just show you. It's a lot easier. I have an HTML file open. If I go to open a new file, you'll see right down here in files of type, it has HTML. That's my first filter. So I only have that one file. I have other ones I can pick. HTML, Jazz templates, or I can hit all files and I get everything. As long as you're aware of that, you won't be surprised when you open this thing up and say, where's my file? You know, because let's say you're in the text editor and you're trying to open HTML, you don't see it because of the filter. If I was in a text file, I have to go to that all files so I can see the HTML. That's how that works. I also want to point out right here, this open as read only. That slipped by the quality control here. There's no code honoring this open as read only flag. So just be aware of that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I haven't covered that really needs to be covered. I think we've talked a little bit about the information that's in the top of the screen here. As you're working, it kind of gives you real-time stats of what the editor is doing, like how many. I just selected 40 characters, where my character I started selecting, where I stopped, all that kind of thing. All that kind of information is set there. Let me look at this real quick. Revert means to, like, if I modified a file, it will bring it back to the original file name if it exists. So if I made a change like this, and I wanted to, oops, so I really didn't want any of those changes. Let me just go back where I started. It does warn me, you have changes pending. You sure you want to reload the current file from disk? Yeah, I do. And it puts it right back the way I had it. See, document info only really has character count for the whole file right now. That's all it's in the document info. Edit. We have a lot of options here, including insert file. So wherever your cursor is in the editor, if I hit file and then go to insert, and let's say I insert this test one again, it just inserted the file from disk at the spot that my cursor was. So I guess you could say I included a file. And that's how that works. To change the uppercase, change the lowercase. If you have text highlighted, you can either right click and do that, change the uppercase, change the lowercase, proper case, or you can use the menu options just the same to do that. Find, when you're doing finds, if you didn't hear any other videos or whatever, if I started right now searching for HTML, if my cursor is in front of this H, it's not going to find the first HTML because the search starts here, and it would actually find this one. So if I hit Control F to find HTML with my cursor starting on that first HTML on the top of the screen there in front of the H, it's going to find the second one because the searching actually starts at the letter T. That may change in another version, but that's how it is right now. And let's see what else we got. Let me just shoot through these menus options. The calculator we covered. The open config file directly. I didn't save my config, so it's going to tell me it doesn't exist. If I did, let's just go save one real fast. Let me just save where I'm at. Boom, that just saved my configuration. It gave me a dialog telling me where it saved it. Now I'm going to go to open config file directly, and there's the actual configuration file. Now I didn't really set this up to be modified by hand, but hey, it allows you to do it. You know those dialogues that come up when you go to do column selecting the first time, like this dialog? That's actually right here. That's column mode message has been read. If you set that to true and saved it, same thing with the special search and replace message mode, which you get if you do this, and then you go to do a replace. It gives you a warning dialog box. I talked about how if I save my configuration, just using the normal thing, tools, options, and hit save, it would remember that. But these are actually the two fields that decide whether or not you're going to see those dialogues again, those little reminders of how to do column editing, where the undo does not work and where it does work for the column modes, and how the special search and replace works. Okay, so we got that. We covered the filters a little bit. Running, I think we covered in the other video pretty good. And on help, of course, you can see our webpage, or you can see about the program, but you can also visit us online if you'd like to. It tells you the current version you're on. And there's also the status, which tells you everything that's going on, the current programming language that you're using, the syntax editor that's in use to represent that language, whether the file has changes or not, the last compile exit status code if you were doing compiling from within Jegas Edit, and debug mode, which turns on a lot of different dialogues and messages that probably won't be useful to you, but it's there in case we ever had a problem, wanted to work through with it work it through online. You can send us feedback, submit a bug report, and there's also online help, which bring you to our webpage, and you can get to the updated online help that we've written so far about Jegas Edit. And that's about the end of this video. I'm running out of time, and you have a great day. I hope you enjoy using Jegas Edit. If you have any questions, don't forget to contact us. Don't hesitate. Thank you. Have a good day.